A rubber boat, 10 Marines, a caving ladder clanging against the steel hull of a tanker that hasn't answered 3 radio calls. 6 feet below them, the water is dark, unconfirmed, and potentially seeded with mines. This is what a selective blockade looks like at 0 altitude. Now, pull back to the chart. 21 nautical miles of navigable water, 138 vessels a day, 1/5 of the world's oil. The United States Navy has been ordered to shut it down, but only the Iranian portion. The physics problem is immediate. How do you choke one country's economy while letting everyone else through? In a corridor narrower than the length of Manhattan, filled with invisible mines, suicide drones flying below the radar horizon, and fast attack boats that look identical to fishing vessels until the moment they detonate? A destroyer can launch a Tomahawk from 100 miles away. A carrier can strike targets from the other side of the Gulf. But neither can climb aboard a tanker, check its manifest, and decide in 30 seconds if the crew is hauling crude oil or concealing weapons. That job requires eyes at close range and boots on deck. No sensor replaces a Marine reading a captain's face. If that engineering problem interests you, subscribe to Big T Universal. We don't just summarize blockades, we disassemble them. The answer to how the U.S. Navy selectively strangles one maritime economy while keeping the global oil flow steady requires 3 capabilities no other fleet on Earth possesses simultaneously. We start with the eyes.
Every weapon system the Navy has perfected over the last 70 years was designed for one environment: blue water. The open ocean. Hundreds of miles between combatants, radar sees far, missiles fly far, stealth matters because there is nothing else on the screen. Hormuz breaks all of it. At 21 miles wide, the strait compresses the world's most advanced naval force into a space smaller than a single carrier's radar footprint. The water is shallow, barely 200 feet in the shipping lanes. The coastline is a jagged mess of islands and inlets that create thousands of false radar returns. And moving through that clutter? Fishing dhows, oil service boats, and coastal freighters. Hundreds of civilian contacts generating a wall of noise on every sensor. Iran understands this geometry perfectly. The IRGC Navy doesn't fight in blue water. It fights in the clutter. Its Paycop-class fast attack craft, displacing barely 14 tons, hide among fishing vessels. Same size, same radar cross-section, same speed. The difference? A Paycop carries 2 C-704 anti-ship missiles. They can cripple a frigate, but you can't distinguish them from a fishing boat until they are in visual range. And by visual range, the missile is already in the air. Add to that Shahed 136 drones flying 300 feet above the waves, indistinguishable from seabirds. And below the surface, thousands of mines sitting silent. The enemy the Navy cannot outrun or outspend isn't a ship, it's target discrimination.
The physics of a narrow waterway strips away every advantage a blue water Navy possesses. It forces the most expensive fleet ever built to fight at ranges its designers never intended. The Navy has an answer, but it doesn't come from the ship you'd expect. The USS Abraham Lincoln stays outside. She holds position in the Gulf of Oman, her air wing ready to strike anything within 300 miles. But 300 miles is too far to read a hull number or decide if a dhow is fishing or carrying missiles. The carrier provides the umbrella. Someone else has to walk in the rain. Enter the USS Tripoli, LHA-7. 45,000 tons, 844 feet long. She carries no Tomahawks and no Aegis radar. What she does carry is organic surveillance at 3 altitudes simultaneously. Start at the top. Tripoli embarks up to 20 F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters. At Hormuz, they are dropping bombs. They are flying surveillance orbits at 25,000 feet. The secret is the AAQ-37 distributed aperture system. 6 infrared cameras mounted around the fuselage providing 360-degree spherical coverage. From 5 miles up, DAS tracks every vessel on the surface, classifying them by infrared signature. A fishing dhow with a small diesel engine generates a thermal pattern fundamentally different from a Paycop boat idling with oversized turbines. DAS sees the difference.
A $109 million stealth fighter built to dominate the sky is reduced to a high-speed surveillance camera. That is the trade-off. Tripoli trades air combat power for target discrimination. At Hormuz, knowing which ship to board is worth more than knowing which ship to bomb.
Drop to the middle altitude. MH-60S Seahawk helicopters. They fly at 200 feet, close enough to read hull numbers and check if the fishing nets are actually wet. 598, visual confirmation is the final discriminator. If the nets are dry, they aren't fishing. 612, drop to the surface. Task Force 59's GARC, Global Autonomous Reconnaissance Craft. These 16-foot unmanned boats run at 40 knots, 24 hours a day. AI-powered classification tracks who has their transponder on, who has gone dark, and who is behaving erratically. 3 layers, F-35s for thermal classification, Seahawks for visual confirmation, and GARCs for behavioral tracking. Tripoli stitches them into a single real-time target list. It's like airport security, but the conveyor belt is 21 miles wide and moving at 30 knots. But the list is only step 1. Someone still has to climb onto the ship. 10 Marines, a caving ladder, and the VBSS protocol. Here is the contradiction. The U.S. fields the most sophisticated standoff weapons ever engineered. Tomahawks and LRASMs designed to keep sailors as far from the enemy as physics allows. And then we send 10 Marines in a rubber boat to climb a ladder onto a tanker that might be wired to blow. Every Aegis radar and Virginia-class submarine in the region exists for one purpose during a blockade: to create a security bubble large enough for those 10 Marines to climb that ladder alive. The procedure is VBSS, Visit, Board, Search, and Seizure. It follows 5 strict phases. Identification, cross-referencing the ship against Tripoli's target list. Query, hailing on Channel 16 to check cargo and destination. Warning, ordering the vessel to heave to if the response is suspicious. Boarding, fast roping from a Seahawk or climbing from a rip. Search, a compartment-by-compartment sweep that can take up to 2 hours.
The 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit rotates through these operations in grueling cycles, transforming a billion-dollar strike group into a floating police station. 933. The threat isn't theoretical. Iran runs a protection racket here, and U.S. boarding teams must interdict under rules of engagement that require visual proof before opening fire. But boarding only works if the corridor is open. And right now, the seabed is seeded with objects designed to ensure the Tripoli never arrives. The mine that doesn't need to sink ships to win. 1013. To find a weapon designed to be invisible, we strip away every high-tech advantage. Destroyers go quiet, sonar off, speed reduced to a crawl. A 9,000-ton warship goes dark because the weapon it hunts doesn't move or communicate. It just waits in the mud. Iran has been seeding the strait with mines since February. Contact mines, influence mines, and rising mines. And here is the detail most analysts miss. Iran itself likely cannot locate all the mines it laid. In rough seas and at night, precision logging fails. The minefield is permanent until someone clears it by hand. The Navy's primary tool is the Knifefish, an unmanned undersea vehicle. It uses synthetic aperture sonar, or SAS, to see through silt and sediment. It can distinguish a buried mine from a rock by analyzing acoustic reflectivity. It's like finding a phone that's powered off, buried in 3 feet of sand on a 21-mile beach. Down here, the most advanced fleet on Earth is reduced to robot versus mud, and the clock is brutal. Every day the Tripoli cannot transit safely is a day Iranian oil continues to flow. The mine doesn't need to sink a ship, it just needs to delay the clearance long enough for the blockade to lose credibility. On April 11th, the Navy made its move. The USS Frank E. Peterson Jr. and USS Michael Murphy transited the strait to establish a verified mine-free corridor.
2 9,000-ton destroyers leading the sweep, accepting direct risk and proving the channel with their own hulls. Why the blockade is a valve, not a wall. Step back. If you watch each piece in isolation, you see 3 separate problems: surveillance, boarding, and mine clearance. But why does it require all 3? Because this isn't a 20th century blockade. It's not a wall of warships that shoots anything that moves. That model would choke the global economy. A wall blocks everyone. The U.S. Navy doesn't need a wall. It needs a valve. A valve that opens for Saudi tankers but closes for Iranian crude. A valve that lets Japanese LNG through but stops IRGC attack boats.
It's a system that adjusts ship by ship in real time. Look at Tripoli's sensor net again. It isn't a weapon system, it's a classification engine. The F-35 isn't a fighter here, it's a scanner with afterburners. The entire strike group is deployed not to win a battle, but to operate an economic surgical instrument. Iran assumed that by threatening Hormuz, the world would restrain America to save oil prices. Instead, America built a machine that strangles Iran while keeping the world's prices stable. The global stakes. If this changed how you understand the Strait of Hormuz, subscribe to Navy Decoded. Because the real question is, how many navies can actually play this game? France has 1 carrier. The Royal Navy has 2. China has 3, but has never conducted a contested blockade. For the nations that cannot play this game, the ones whose economies depend on choke points they cannot control, what happens when their strait is next? When Malacca narrows? When the Taiwan Strait heats up? When the Bab el-Mandeb closes? Who builds the valve then? Dismissed. If more engineering problem interests you, subscribe to BT Universal. We don't just summarize blockades, we disassemble them.